day I chose not to let anything win but my drive to get me to the top.
Frank Lee made the beat.
What it do, KTTeeV? This is KT, and I'm coming at you live with another episode of the Daily K Podcast. And on today's episode, I have financial strategist and CEO of Big Life Financial, Mr. Derick Van Ness. How you doing today, Mr. Derick?
Fantastic, KT. I really appreciate you having me on the show today.
Hey, man, in a busy go-go world, I want to say thank you for taking a few minutes out to really talk to the audience, one, about the work you're doing at Big Life, but also how do we simply get 2021 off to a great start financially?
Yeah, that's a big thing for a lot of people. 2020 was a bit of a curveball, put a lot of people on the back foot. And so we're looking at 2021, the clock changed, the date changed, but that's about it. Everything else kind of stayed the same. So we need to change if we want a different result this year. So I'd be happy to talk with you a little about some of the ideas, some of the things that I see that are working out there. Also what's going on with the economy and all the other stuff there, because there are a lot of forces at play. And, for the average person, if you don't have a lot of time to dig in and research this stuff, it can be a lot to handle. We're drowning in information, and not all of it's true. So, you got to figure out who to believe and how to take action in your own life.
Man, very true, very true. And before we get started, I'd like to do just a wellness check, man. How have you been doing during the pandemic, and how are you staying safe as you go about your way?
Thankfully, as far as staying safe, my business, I'm able to work from a home office. I'm able to meet with clients remotely. I was doing that for the last couple of years. I don't want to say we didn't miss a beat, because we did. I didn't know it was going to go on. We'd never been through this. I wasn't sure if I should be, stocking up on zombie food or what it was going to be when this thing happened. So we had a couple of months there where my focus wasn't 100% on business, right? It was taking care of my family and making sure that the people around me were safe and that we were doing the right things. Obviously, I kept doing business, but for the most part, honestly, last year was our best year ever. Still, we were still able to turn it around. So that part of it wasn't too bad. But mentally, I'm going to be honest. Like, I've had some really good months, and I've had some really tough months. When it first started off, I thought I was crazy predicting that it was going to go until July or August, when everybody was talking about going back to church on Easter. And it turns out I way undershot that.
I'm telling you.
So yeah, it's been quite a ride, and I think it's been interesting because we've never really before had the government so involved in the economy and the economics of what's going on in the world. We've never had an economy shut down. We've never had the government directly issue paychecks to so many people so consistently. We've never had the government tell people they can't evict people or banks foreclose on houses. Never had the economy get so much cash where they basically gave free paychecks to an awful lot of people through the PPP. So a lot of interesting things happening there, and I think it's a big. There's a lot of smoke screen, a lot of stuff. It's kind of like a jackhammer. They came in with a jackhammer, and there's a lot of dust up in the air, and a lot of that's still shaking out, and it might be for some time. So it's been a real interesting ride, but I would say more than anything, it's kept my economic brain running and trying to figure all this stuff out, because it's pretty interesting.
Yes, man. Just digging into things. I know I took a lot of time myself to, just started learning more about my credit, learning more about the money, and thinking about just the way I see it during this pandemic. So I think hopefully a lot of people were taking advantage of the financial world like that, because like you say, it's information overload. But once you find those good sources, I think you have to attack, especially if you're not comfortable with where you are. And so I have a friend, Andy, and she's a credit and wealth strategist, but she started her business because she was turned down for a home loan. And so she didn't know too much about her financials, didn't know how to really get approved. And so she started digging into it, and she taught herself over the years. And now I will say she's pretty good. So for you starting Big Life Financial, was it a story like that started you in it, or were you just passed down in generations? How did it go?
Yeah, I always wanted to have my own business, but I really didn't think I'd be a financial person. I love to help people. I actually did fix and flips for a long time. And what I did like about that was helping people out of a tough situation and being able to take beat up houses and make them pretty and all of that. But in 2008, when the market crashed, I was in California. I actually was in an accident right as that happened. So I was laying in bed as the market crashed, and I had 16 fix and flips going, but no one out there to work on them because I wasn't around to help and make sure that I was supervising and those things were moving forward. And that's what really put me on this path. Was at the time, I was making $300,000-$400,000 a year in my early 30s and doing really well financially. And then when the market crashed, like I basically lost everything, right? And it took a year and a half. It was kind of like the Titanic hit the iceberg. I knew I was the captain going down with the ship, but it took 18 months to sink. That was a really tough 18 months. I had a lot of time to think about, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And how can I go from this situation where I literally had more money than I knew how to spend, as a young single guy, to not having enough money to go to Taco Bell? I mean, honestly, I had that experience of get to a Taco Bell in Houston, and the one, what road is that out there? I can't quite remember. It's been a long time. Richmond. Yeah. Yeah. Just outside the loop there.
Yeah.
And standing in that Taco Bell, looking up at the menu and thinking to myself, there's things on this menu I can't afford. What has happened? Right? Like that was a real, when you can't handle the combo meal, you got to take the extra taco off. That was a really hard day for me. So, I thought long and hard about it. One thing about losing a business, if you've ever been through it, is you get to look really closely at what's not working and how inefficient you were and how wasteful you were and the bad decisions you made and all the other stuff. And that got me really passionate because I'm going to be honest, man, like that whole process of losing everything kind of ripped my soul out and put it in the shredder. And I had to rebuild who I thought I was. And it was tough. It really was. And a big part of that was figuring out, how do I make sure this never happens again? And then once I got it for me, a friend of mine kind of scooped me up and said, hey, you've got all this experience as a business owner. You've worked with the financial services. You've done a bunch of other things in real estate. And you have the background, like a lot of what we were doing was putting purpose into your money, right? So that you created something that wasn't a prison for you to earn money, but really was your dream, and infusing who you are into it. So that kind of got me on the path. I really wanted it. I was studying it, learned all kinds of things about credit and bankruptcy and loan modifications and all kinds of different things that were like a whole nother level of things. And I actually learned a lot of the emotion. Like there's a lot of emotion with money, and to have it is one emotion, and to not have it is another emotion. And so basically it was a perfect storm. All these things I was learning for myself, and then I had the opportunity to come into a structure where I could learn how to teach that. And I did that for, I don't know, it was 6-7 years under the tutelage of a really smart guy named Derick and was kind of one of his lead coaches. And that made me realize how much I love working with people. I would have never thought I'd be a finance guy. It sounds super boring on the surface. But when you love people and you get to connect with people and you realize that the things that I show these people change their life, I was hooked, man. I even went back to flipping houses at one point part-time because I was like, there's just, there's something about getting that $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 hit of money.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have the satisfaction working with people. So I came back to this side, started my own thing, and, for the last 5 or 6 years, been full-time at that. So in total, worked with a couple thousand businesses over the years.
Yeah, man, congratulations. And yeah, I haven't necessarily lost a business, but going through just getting them started and getting them going is a feat in itself, But that reflection is very good because it seems like it helped you, So.
Oh, it absolutely did. I mean, they say in a lot of situations, whether it's sports or life or relationships, you learn a lot more when you lose than when you win quite often. Because when you win, maybe you did a lot of things wrong and something just went your way. When you lose, you're really forced to look at, hey, this didn't cut the mustard. This doesn't function in the world. How do I get a different result in the future? And it's painful, but I do find that almost all the growth happens during pain, and If you're really one of those proactive people and can do it without the pain, kudos to you, but that isn't how most of us work.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, I got to learn this lesson. Man, and when we're thinking about pain, just getting into the money part,
Sure.
whether as a result of the pandemic or not, we're seeing a lot of people making mistakes or just losing money, blowing money, losing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as you work your way through the financial sector and you're dealing with these people, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen them make? And what can they do to start beginning to fix that one main issue that you keep seeing?
Yeah. So the biggest mistake that I see most people, there's maybe two of them. One of them is they just don't have any financial literacy, right? They don't know what they're doing. Like your friend, right? Like they want to buy a house. They don't even know what that looks like. They call a realtor. That's maybe what they know, right? And when you go into large transactions like buying a car, buying a house, making investments, and you don't know what's going on, it's a little bit like the old saying, when you sit down to play cards, if you can't see the sucker at the table, you're it, right? And so a lot of people are very unprepared going into these financial situations. They're making uninformed decisions or decisions where they've only been informed by one person. It's like walking onto a car lot to buy a Toyota car lot, and you ask the guy what you should buy. What do you think he's going to say?
The highest one.
He's going to say the most expensive Toyota you can afford, right? Because that's what we sell here. And maybe you don't even need a Toyota. Maybe you need something else. And so a lot of people just don't have that much information. They're making decisions in a vacuum. So that's one big mistake. And then the other big one is people don't save money. And I'm really big on the idea of systematizing your savings, because if you don't save money, you'll never have money to invest. I say savings is the gateway drug to investing, right? Like if you can't get it together and save money, and a lot of people, like, it's not in their instinct to save money. So what you want to do, you want to use what has made 401ks and IRAs and all of that stuff work. I don't love 401ks and IRAs for business owners. For the average person, they can be all right. But for a business owner, like, they need access to their money. The reason to do a 401k is you get a match. If you're the business owner, you're matching your own money. So there's no benefit there. Those plans are usually quite often quite expensive on the fee side anyway. But long story short, systematizing that savings so that if you don't think, you save money, right? Rather than having to think about it. Imagine if you could just do this. If you could just wake up in the morning, and unless you opted out of it, you just worked out every day. It would work, right? You'd get in great shape, because if I don't say no, I just work out. Well, that's what happens when you set up an automatic savings type setup. So for a lot of people, this is super simple. You can just set up an automatic transfer. If you get paid every 2 weeks, if you get paid on the 1st and the 15th, just set up an automatic transfer on the 2nd and on the 16th, right? So the money goes in on one day, next day, just a little piece of that gets pulled off, put over here to the side, and over time, that will build up money for you. Now, savings isn't the be-all, end-all. It's the first step in the journey. Yeah. But if you don't take the first step, you don't get to the second one. And most people are thinking about, I want to do that 10th step up the ladder, so they never take the first step. So they just never get there. And once you get in the habit of not saving and spending every penny you got, buying the nicer car, the nicer house, all the other things, your money's spoken for. It can be hard to break that habit. So that's the big mistake I see, is people aren't aware of what's going on. They aren't saving, and they're on that financial treadmill. All the money comes in and it all goes out. And they're just running and running and running as hard as they can financially, working their butts off, and they're just not getting anywhere because they don't have a system to support them in building wealth.
That is it, man. Very powerful words. That kind of leads me into the next question.
Sure.
A lot of my friends that I talk to don't have that second income, or they don't have that savings to put in to invest. And so they see, like, investing in the stock market as this not real thing. Like, I'm just going to lose my money. So when you are working with your clients, how do you give them, for instance, if you can explain a little bit about making those savings systematic, how do you kind of set them up for that process?
Yeah. So I make this explanation, and a lot of people can relate with this. So the way that most people try to save is they look at their husband or wife or spouse or partner and they say, honey, this month we're not going out to eat. It's the pandemic anyway. We're not buying anything fancy. We're not doing all that extra stuff. And whatever's left at the end of the month, we're just going to save it all, right? And it seems like such a good idea on the first, but by the time they get around to the 30th, how much do you think's left in the account? Zero, right? Or maybe negative a little bit. And it's because as human beings, we're wired to spend whatever we make. Like it's kind of the natural, if you just don't put any rules on it, that's just what we do. We spend everything we make because we want as much cool stuff as we can have, or as much good food, or whatever your thing is. That's what we do. So what you want to do is you got to systematize it so that you save first. So like I said just a minute ago, if you get paid on the first, set up a transfer on the second. So you never even see the money. The money comes out, goes in the savings account. You live on the rest all month long. It's 10% less, 20% less, whatever. Truly, most people, unless you're truly like walking the line, won't miss 10%. You just won't. You'll adjust, and maybe you'll go out to eat a few less times, or go to slightly less places, or you won't get that extra set of kicks, or whatever it is that you're into. You'll get one every other month instead of every month, or whatever, right? You just kind of ratchet it down just that much, but now it starts to build up in that savings account. So I think mentally, you've got to pay yourself first. And like, I don't love a lot of things about traditional financial planning, but that is one that everybody gets right. If you don't save first, you will not save. It's like trying to work out before you go to bed instead of first thing in the morning. It's just hard to be consistent. Yeah. Most people don't do it. So we also use, once people start getting some savings built up and they want to save in something better than a savings account, we actually set up these specially designed life insurance policies. And I know that might sound crazy, like why life insurance to save money? They actually have a component in them if you get a whole life policy and you set it up properly where it builds cash value. So you put the money in there and that cash grows at a guaranteed rate plus a dividend. So it grows to keep up with what's happening out in the markets a little bit. But you can get to your cash like you can in a savings vehicle, right? Usually you got to call them up and they send you a check for it as opposed to going down to the corner bank. But what happens with insurance that systematizes it is you get a bill every month and that bill gets paid every month. It's an automatic draft, just like a lot of people have their bills on auto pay. Same thing, the bill shows up, you pay it, but that money goes into cash. And over time, just like a 401k or an IRA that automatically pays in, the money goes into the life insurance policy. And we actually teach people how to turn that into their own banking system so that a couple of years down the road, now you can, when you buy a car or you buy a house or you remodel your house or buy furniture, stuff you would have gotten a loan for before, now you actually lend the money to yourself and pay yourself back plus interest. It might sound kind of crazy, but instead of paying that 5 or 6 or 7% interest to the bank, you're paying it back into your own account so it can grow and compound for you for the rest of your life. Really makes a big difference over time. So it's a simple strategy we put into place to automate the whole thing, the life insurance savings part. But if you're not quite ready for life insurance, you can definitely do it with a sweep or automatic transfer.
And I do. And tell me about this if I'm crazy, and I don't want to tell my people the wrong thing. But I use the Acorns app, something like that. And so what I do is I let it build up, and then I take that out, and then I invest that.
Okay.
So is that okay? As far as the automated savings plan?
It can be. It works. The main problem with Acorns, and this isn't a problem, it's just like when we're looking at the big picture, is, it takes, for those of you who don't know, it takes whatever you spend. Let's say you spend 59 cents and it usually rounds to the nearest dollar. It takes that extra 40 something cents and puts it over into your savings account, right? Or builds up into that account. And then you can take that money and do other things with it. So it's kind of a neat way to like shave a bunch of savings off for you. But it doesn't automatically invest for you. It doesn't automatically save for you. So I think a system like that can be good. The problem is it's based on how much you spend, not how much you earn. So I'd love to see you, like, let's say you're like, yeah, consistently through Acorns, I save $200 a month, right? And you feel like I want to be saving 10% of my income, and 10% of my income is $500 a month. Then I'd say set up a $300 a month automatic payment, and then you can do the rest through Acorns or something. But really, I'd like to see you set up the savings from the income side, not from the spending side.
Okay.
But once again, it's a system, right? It works. It saves that money for you automatically without you thinking. So I think it can be a great system. And then you got to get out there and, put the money to work and try some things. And truly, Kendrick, part of what I think is important is that some people like your friend who want to do a mortgage or people who want to invest in the market or invest in other things, I honestly think there is a lot of value in just getting your feet wet, right? Generally, my rule of thumb is investing in things you know about, things you care about, and things you control. So typically, my opinion is your best investment is in your education first. If you want to invest in real estate, don't just go buy a house. Spend a little money. Learn what you're doing. Learn how to buy a house right. Learn what you're looking for so you don't get burned. If you want to invest in the stock market, then take some classes. Spend a little time. Spend a little money. So take 6 months. You can save up along the way so that, but learn how to do it from people who know what they're doing. I just feel like too many people, the big problem, and I beat up on the stock market because it's the perpetrator. It's not really the stock market's fault. It's just that's where most people put their money, and they don't understand it. It'd be the same thing if you're putting your money into gold and silver and you don't know why, or Bitcoin, you don't know why, real estate, and you don't know why. It's the don't know why part that's the problem. It's just that most people who don't know what they're doing put their money into the market, and that's why you hear me beat up on it sometimes if you listen to my interviews. It's not a stock market thing. It's a people are putting their money where they don't understand it thing. Make sense?
And that brings me to the next. Look, man, we are leading right into the questions, man. This is awesome.
I'm a mind reader. Don't you know this?
So I started investing, I said about a year ago. And now, after going through the pandemic and really catching a bunch of ETFs, catching a lot of things real low, and riding them out, I've been able to see that upside. Yeah. Even with me making all this money, I still have to kind of talk my friends into it. I finally got one on, and so he's kind of in with me. But I know that information and that knowledge is very important as we get into that stock market. But talk to us a little bit about what you kind of talk to your clients about with investing, and what kind of investor are you, man?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I think for somebody who's just getting started, if you want to try the stock market, just put a little bit in there. Put in $100 a month, just to play with, get familiar with it. Or if you want to put it into gold, or you want to put it into Bitcoin, or you want to whatever your thing is. You can't really do real estate for $100 a month, right? But I do think there's something to be said for practicing putting money away, like you said, to have the experience. You probably had some ups and you probably had some downs, and you kind of got to feel like, what's going on here, right? But you're playing it with a small enough amount of money that is not going to like scare the heck out of you. So it's kind of like dipping your toe in the water, feeling it out, seeing what you think. I personally think the average person is at a huge disadvantage if you're trying to beat the market, right? Like if you're trying to guess what the next big stock is, oh, I want to buy Tesla, or I want to buy Apple, or these other things. I mean, I have some things that I think are favorites and whatever, but those are based on my own biases and my own limited information. Because really, here's the thing about the stock market. It's a zero-sum game. What I mean by that is for someone to win, someone else has to lose, right? And you're competing with the guys on Wall Street. These guys who got Harvard educations and $1 billion of software telling them what to do and don't do. They've got the ability to come in and push the market around a little bit. Sometimes they call it making a market, where they can dump a bunch of money into something and cause it to go up and then yank their money back out and the whole thing falls down. And, there is some manipulation and things that go like that. So I think for the average person, if you're just getting started, I'd say it's better to go a little bit safer. Sometimes the funds are a little bit safer. The problem with funds is quite often they have higher fees. And I think that's the biggest thing you can do to help yourself in the stock market is keep your fees low, right? I'm not a licensed investor, investment advisor. I don't do a lot of stock market stuff because I feel like most people don't understand it. I'm not trying to beat the guys on Wall Street. I'm actually a believer in invest in what you know about, care about, and control. So for most people, that's in your own skill set. Get really good at your job. Make a lot more money. That's the first place. If you put an extra, let's say you put $10,000 in the market and it goes up 10% this year. So you make $1,000 and then you got to pay some fees. So maybe you end up with $700. That's great. Imagine if you put $10,000 into your skill set, hired yourself a really good mentor, a really good sales coach, a really good, to become a great programmer or whatever it is that you do, right? So you can get a better raise. Well, you think you could get more than a $700 raise one year? Do you think you could? I talked to a guy who drove a forklift, right? And he said, if I could get this certification, it costs about $2,000, a little bit of time, but I could get a raise of $5,000 to $10,000 a year. I'm like, that's a no-brainer. Like that kind of investment is such low risk and such high returns, right? He's going to make, let's say he only gets the $5,000 raise. He's going to make, 150% on his money every single year from here forward. I'll take that raise or that kind of return all day long, right? So to me, that's the first place you invest, in your skill set, your ability to earn money in the first place. Because even if you don't make that much more money, you take the skill set with you to the next job and the next job and the next job, right? So I feel like that's the first thing that people are missing, is they're looking outside themselves, outside of their primary knowledge, outside of their primary business. So I'd look there first. If you can get that rate of return going, that'll beat anything else that you can do out there. Now, once you get your career going, you get your business going, you're saving, like we talked about, 10 to 20%, you're setting that aside. I'm a big believer that if you don't know what you want to invest in, that's where we bring in the life insurance. It's got some guaranteed rates of return, it's got some upside, and it's totally liquid. So when you find the better thing at some point, you can take the money from the life insurance and go do the other thing, right? A lot of my clients, we teach them build up money in life insurance, and then a lot of them end up buying rental real estate and creating passive income that way. The two tools work really, really well. You can actually get your dollar doing 10 jobs in that very simple system. Save it up into this savings vehicle, and then when you're ready, you go buy real estate with it. You play the bank for yourself, so you collect a lot of the interest instead of paying it. And the big thing that both of those have going for them is they have tax advantages, because what a lot of people don't realize is taxes and fees are a huge part of your investing strategy. Like if you're on the low end, taxes aren't that big a deal, but once you start making a couple $100,000 a year, taxes are a real issue. Like if you're earning over $400,000 in California right now, by the time you pay federal and state tax, you're almost giving Uncle Sam half your money. It's like 47% or something. So it's ridiculous, right? Tax strategy really, really matters. And that's another huge mistake I see as people make more. Like if you're making 40, 50 grand a year, tax strategy is not as big a deal. And so I think it's important to realize that. And then the fees. Some of these things in the stock market and even some life insurance policies and other things, you can really get beat up on fees. Did you know that there are and have been certain funds, like mutual funds and stuff, that like the fees are 5%? So if you make 7%, your agent gets 5 and you get 2. If you lose 5%, you lose 10 and he gets 5. Like it's pretty heavy duty. It is so hard to outrun that kind of cost on your investing, because it comes out every year, whether it's up or down, and it really cripples your ability to earn. So fees are really a big deal. That's where a lot of people have gone to the ETFs and gone to the index funds and stuff, is because a lot of those fees are much lower. So I think if you don't know what you're doing, going into something that's really diversified and just practicing and using it as a reason to start to learn a little bit is great. But I'd say the best thing to do is get a little money in there, then go invest in your education so you know what you're looking at. It's like if somebody walks in the room and they're watching a football game, but they've never seen football, they're just watching it go on. Like they're not going to learn very much. right? That's how most people do the stock market. They're like the person who walks in and is like, who's winning, right? Even though the score is on the board, they don't even know how to read that, let alone all the strategy. So, and they're betting on the game. Bad idea. So I feel like that's really the big problem there is a lot of people won't invest in their education first. They're so eager. Once again, they don't want to save. They don't want to learn. They just want to make money. Guess what? It doesn't usually work that way. If you don't bring anything to the party, you don't do too well.
Does not work that way, man. I'll tell you, since I started, just the knowledge, man, of just books. I got really deep into people like Ray Dalio, and just looking, catching clips of Buffett, but really learning how to break down businesses from like the CEOs all the way down to the PE. We covering the bases on that. So you have to learn more about yourself and learn more about who you are as an investor. But like you say, the first thing is investing in that skill set. That was such a great tip, man, because like you said, you can take that knowledge from one job to the next that you invested in. And so awesome tip, man. I look so forward to just sharing that piece with people because, hey, very great. So now, all this good information, as a potential client, I want to come and sign up with you. What does that first session look like when I come on?
Well, here's the simple framework. I'll usually get to know you as a person, right? Where are you at? Are you 65 and about to retire? Are you 25 and just coming out of school? Are you 45 and you're neck deep and trying to save for your kids' college, right? Like, where are you at? Second thing is figuring out where you're at financially. What have you done up to this point? What's working? What's not working? And then looking at where you want to go and being able to connect the two, figure out, what are the things that are holding you back? Why aren't you making the progress that you want to make? Because quite frankly, most of the people I talk to, the reason they're talking to me, they don't have it all figured out. If they did, they wouldn't be on the phone with me, right? So they're usually looking for solutions. So I like to get to the bottom of where are you now? Where do you want to go? What's keeping you from getting there? And figuring out what that bridge is. So that's usually what we do. For a lot of my business owners, it starts with taxes, just making sure that part's right. We do a tax master class in my Facebook group called the Business Owner Success Lab. We do that about every 6 or 8 weeks because I literally spend 8 days in a row for an hour a day, roughly an hour a day, teaching people tax strategies. How do you create tax-free income? How do you save taxes? What are all the write-offs everybody's missing? We do research and development credits that for doctors and dentists and construction companies and software engineers and all this stuff. Like, they don't even know. I was just on the phone with someone. Chances are real good he's leaving 25 to 30 grand a year on the table with his software company because he doesn't even realize he can file for these research and development credits, right? So taxes is a lot of times where we start, just making sure you're not giving Uncle Sam any more money than necessary, and then looking at where do we need to put that money. And that could be life insurance, it could be investments, it could be other things. I've got an investment advisor that really helps people based on your needs. Are you trying to create cash flow? Do you want to create growth? You're trying to save for college. What's your time frame? There's a lot of things that we look at to make sure that you're going to be in the best position to accomplish what you want, because ultimately that's it. It's about helping people live a big life. And the way we do that is we help people get money out of the way, create that system that kind of autopilots a lot of it in areas that you understand and want to pay attention to anyway, because it's part of your life. And then we take them from there. Yeah.
And do you, for the Facebook group, is it only for people that are your clients, or is it an open group? How does that work?
You have to be approved, just because we don't want, how that goes on social media, spammers and all the crazy stuff. So you have to be approved, but yeah, you can just go to the Business Owner Success Lab. It asks you, do you own a business, and what are your biggest financial questions? You don't have to be a business owner, but that's definitely who we're tailoring it to. Business owners have a ton of tax advantages, and you mentioned a side hustle earlier. I think everybody should have a side hustle, truly. Like, if you're making money, and that's great, find something that you care about. Find something that you might want to be in business with. Find a hobby that you can get really good at and make some money at, because a lot of that income can be offset by the costs of being involved in things you're already going to do. Like, for me, I was a I was really into swing dancing pre-pandemic, right? And I got good enough at swing dancing that I started getting paid to teach classes and getting paid to DJ and all these things. I used to spend $10,000 a year traveling the country to go to these things and learn and compete and have fun. Once I started getting paid, I wasn't making a ton of money, but I was making maybe $5,000 a year instead of spending 10. Plus, I got to write most of that off for all my travel and costs and expenses. So for me, it was like an extra $15,000 swing for doing something I was going to do anyway. Passion-based businesses a lot of times don't make you a ton of extra money, but they can, just depending on what you're into. But I really do believe having a side hustle, even if you just flip 1 or 2 houses a year, or you do a little bit of extra here and there, that stuff really does add up because it's all frosting on the cake.
Yes, sir. All frosting on the cake.
Yes.
Man, and what's the contact information if we're trying to find you, Mr. Derick?
The easiest way is just to go to biglifefinancial.com. There's a button up in the corner that says work with us. You can click that. And, even on the website, I've got a free real estate investing course. We've got a free book on how to build that banking system I was talking about and how the Rockefellers did that. We've got a book on the research and development tax credits and how to apply for those, and a bunch of other stuff, blogs, and I've got a YouTube channel that you can find there, or you can just go to biglifefinancial.com/YouTube. Do a couple videos a week where I try to break down different things. I just did one on the state of the economy. I just did a big one on changes you can make to make 2021 better than 2020, and got one coming out on Bitcoin. And then real estate investing and a bunch of other things. But really, I try to make every single video so there's something really powerful and valuable there, because I just think, getting those snippets and those little bits of perspective really matter. They add up over time.
And before we go, do you see Bitcoin going to 100,000?
Eventually, I don't think there's any question. The question is how fast, and is there going to be a major drop? Without giving any advice, I feel like the long term, and when I say long term, even the next couple of years, I think just due to inflation, right? We're going to keep rates low. The government just printed $5 trillion and put it into the economy. I feel like it's going to continue to go up. I do feel like there's a lot of economies out there where people are starting to store cash in there. But the big thing that's happening is private companies, where they can invest $100 million like MassMutual did, or some of these kinds of things are really starting to matter. PayPal has kind of in a clunky way been trying to accept, Bitcoin and make it usable. I think as it becomes more usable and more viable with the big players in there, it'll stabilize. And I do think it's going to continue to rise over time. I'm sure there'll be some crashes in there, but I think longer term, even over the next couple of years, it's going to be an upward trend. Yep.
Hey,
definitely.
All right. Well, man, I want to say thank you for taking some time out again today. Great information. I look forward to finding the group. I will be joining in myself. I cannot let that information pass me by.
Cool.
So, man, just thank you, and I look forward to sharing this and connecting with you again through the radio show, man, because we got to get this out to the listeners. Great information today.
Thanks, KT. Appreciate it.
All right, man. This is KT for KTTeeV signing out. 100.